We'll start like 10 seconds early. I'm gonna
Love
go
the
ahead and
floor.
introduce Danielle. If at any point in time you guys have questions, anything else, we really want this to be interactive. Feel free to pop whatever in the chat and I can read through the questions and pop in. I'm gonna ask questions as I think of it as well as Danielle is going. But for those of you who know me or don't know me and know Danielle or vice versa, Danielle is based out of Colorado. We've worked at all of the same companies together and then reconnected here at Guild Mortgage, where she's a loan officer now. And watching her Instagram and how she's helping clients in just a totally unique way, I just felt like this is something I absolutely had to share with my clients and my database here in Minnesota. For those of you who don't know me from Danielle's side, I'm Allison Larson. I'm the area manager for Guild Mortgage here in Minnesota. We help tons of first time home buyers, move up buyers, all across the board. But really, my biggest thing is just trying to find anything to pour into the people that we care about and who support us to see how we can help them. With no further ado, I want Danielle to take it away.
Amazing. And before I start, Allison, I just want to make sure you pressed record. I didn't hear the little recording in progress.
It is recording.
Okay, amazing.
Yes.
Well, welcome everybody. $300,000. That is how much money I have made off of my primary residence home since 2017. That is about $37,000 a year or teacher salary after taxes are taken out, or about $3,125 a month. That is life changing for so many people. And that is what the power of buying your first primary residence can do, especially if you're willing to do something like I have done and how it got me into my first house, which is house hacking, renting out a portion of my home while I lived in another portion. And just so you're like, oh my God, she must have a mansion. My house is not a mansion. This is my house.
Okay, I'm just catching this. So you have a side entrance so guests can go in the other way.
Yep, it's a completely separate, so they don't have to walk, like, I don't have to see them at all. And so this is a door I installed after I purchased it to separate a single family home into two.
Okay, cool. For those of you watching, I haven't seen this before either, so this is really this is really cool for me to see.
And that is in the Denver metro area. Denver has one of the highest occupancy rate for short-term rentals because one of our regulations is something called a primary residence rule. You are only able to be an Airbnb host if it's your primary residence. We're going to get into regulation here in just a little bit, and regulations differ between every city, county, state, et cetera. And so we'll kind of dive into like Minneapolis regulation as well as Denver regulation and just kind of some things to keep in mind as if you're an agent looking for a money-making home for clients, or if you're a client yourself, you need to be aware of if you want to do what I have done. So, who am I? I'm Danielle Anderson. Like Allison mentioned, I am a world traveler, house hacker, and mortgage lender. And I really got into this business of helping people buy their primary residence home as a lender because I saw the power from my first home, purchasing my first home at 24, starting the traditional house hacking way with two long-term roommates helping me cover the mortgage. Then in 2011, when Airbnb became more of a thing, then I started renting out one room to a Airbnb guest, having a whole long-term tenant in the other bedroom, and really living, way under what I would have been paying for rent, if not covering my entire mortgage with short-term rental or with rental income. So today we're going to talk about who would house hack? Like, why would you even consider it? What it is, what the different types are, and then if it's something that you or clients are considering, how do we find these money-making homes? Like, what are we looking for? And then how much can you actually make off of a home? Um, and then if you're an agent, how this particular strategy can help you close more deals because affordability is one of the biggest challenges in today's market is whether you're renting or buying, a monthly payment on housing is more than it's ever been compared to take-home pay. So in the chat, I would love to ask, the audience here that we have today, what percentage of homeowners do you think would be willing to house hack or be short-term rental hosts? So if you've got the chat pulled up, is it 25%? Is it 10%? What do you think? 60%, 30%, 10%. Amazing. This is kind of a trick question because it's like any other statistic. It totally depends on who was surveyed. So here's a couple yeah, statistics. CNBC, this common side hustle attracts many who are looking to make money off of an existing asset, their home. About 54% of those who own their own home say they would consider renting it out through a service like Airbnb. Zillow, a majority of millennials, 55%, and Gen Z, 51%, find it highly important to have the opportunity to rent out part of their home for extra income. That's compared to 39% of all home buyers. So I think this stat is staggering because if we're real estate professionals, like mortgage lenders or agents on this call, that means almost one in two of all of our first-time home buyers want the opportunity to rent it out? Are we educated? Are we knowledgeable? Are we at least asking the question of do you want to, like, would you be open to short-term renting or having roommates? Because that can help bridge the gap between somebody saying, I want to wait for 3 years and whether they are able to buy today. And from a house hacking strategy, I I literally, that house that we just saw, I literally just moved out of it like 3 weeks ago. And I'm now in a one bedroom condo, which is costing me way more money than a $700,000 house. I'm now in a $450,000 condo. But when I was 24 to 36, it was much easier for me to have roommates and short-term rental guests. Now I've built wealth through real estate and have decided this is a lifestyle move, not a money-making move, where I'm going to house hack in a different way in the future, where probably a year from now, I'm going to turn this into a midterm rental, then buy a different home, which is a totally different style of house hacking. But when I'm talking with first-time home buyers, it is so much easier to move in with your girlfriend and have your girlfriend pay you rent. Move in with your boyfriend and have your boyfriend pay you rent. Move in with your, two sisters and we all go in on a house together because you don't have kids, you don't have a husband. Like you get into the game and then you're able to build wealth over time. So, this is an affordability graph of what it looks like today. What essentially this is showing us is that affordability is at an all-time low, which means unaffordability is at an all-time high. It is harder to make your housing payment, whether it's rent or a home purchase, in today's environment than it ever has been. And I think this is where you get strategic on how do we make this possible. And how we make this possible is literally what I love about how I separated my, single family house into two. It's like living in an apartment, right? You're up, somebody's below you, you're above somebody's, or you're below somebody, somebody's above you. Yes, can you hear guests every once in a while? Absolutely. But in a condo, can you do that too? 100%.
Danielle, are you going to talk about when you're looking for these properties, what you're looking at?
Yes. Yep. I'll
Okay.
get to that.
Okay.
Yep. So essentially from like a mortgage lender standpoint, if you just get a mortgage lender that's just like, oh, you're pre-approved for 610,000 and that monthly payment is going to be $4,800 and you're paying $2,200, you just stop right there, right? You're just like, oh, can't afford it, can't do it. We're going to just keep renting. Which, if you are unsecure about your job, I think that's fine. Like if you don't have job security, if you don't think you're going to live in that house for 3 years, then I think renting is a great opportunity for a lot of people. If you are in the place that you're going to be, and if you are in a job that is very secure, the data shows, and I'm going to get to that in a minute too, that home ownership will set your future self up so much with so much more net worth than a renter. And that's why I am so passionate about helping you get into the game. So let's take a look here. So this is with 5% down. So 5% down is the minimum down payment that you can do if you've already bought a house before. So if you're not a first-time home buyer, so that's why I'm using this as a just example here. So if you're so on a $550,000 house, a monthly payment at today's average interest rate about 7% with taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance, all of that combined, you're at about $4,000 in a monthly payment. Now, Minnesota taxes might be a little bit different, but this is just
No,
hypothetical here.
that's about right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you're able, let's just say you bought this $550,000 house is a three-bedroom home, and you're renting two of the other bedrooms out, and you're just charging $750 a bedroom, right? A very low end estimate. That's $1,500. That makes your monthly payment $2,400, like what you're responsible for of that $4,000 monthly payment. Now, that would be with about $34,000. Say we didn't get any seller credit, about $34,000 cash to close. Utilizing a down payment assistance program, the monthly payment stays the same because the interest rates are about the same. Then it's 18,000. What if we got a $10,000 seller credit? Those numbers just go down by 10 grand. So $24,000 to get in the game or 8,600 to get in the game. And that's at 5% down. If you're at 3% down, literally both Allison in Minnesota and me in Colorado have a down payment assistance program which states you only need a minimum buyer contribution of $1,000. So essentially, if you got a $10,000 in seller credit to cover all of the closing costs and a down payment assistance program that covered all of the down payment, you can literally get into a house cheaper than you can get into a rental because a rental you have to have first month rent, last month rent, and a security deposit. This is an example of a Minnesota housing payment. So this is with $12,000 in seller credit covering every single closing cost, literally cash to close at $1,300 on a $400,000 purchase price at a $3,500 monthly payment. Again, if that $400,000 house is a three bedroom, which I think in Minnesota you can find a three bedroom at 400,000, right? In
Yes.
Colorado, no. Most likely no. Or at least Denver area, outskirts of Colorado, you would be able to. So 3,500. So then that means that you could live in a house you own at $2,000 a month, where long-term tenants, right? I'm talking house hacking two different ways, and we're going to get into the difference here in just a second because I have done both. Both long-term tenants is a way of house hacking and short-term rental Airbnb guests. In my 20s, I was okay with roommates. In my 30s, I was like, I want my house to be my own.
One thing
86%.
on go
Okay.
back a slide real quick, Danielle. One thing I just want to point out is Guild also has a 0% down FHA program. Julia just commented, you can still find duplexes for sale in Minnesota for 400K. You could literally buy a duplex with 0% down. And the really cool thing about our program at Guild, the interest rate is about market interest rate. I think I priced one yesterday. It was at 7.25. That's not bad. And if you stay in the home for 36 months, the down payment assistance you received, the 3.5%, is literally free money. It's totally forgiven. So if you think of you're making rent, plus I just got 3.5% of the purchase price for free, that's wild. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might have a slide on here. If I didn't, I'm going to talk about it real quick. The two barriers to entry for all the home buyers that I talk to is either the monthly payment is too high or they think that they need to save up more money for a down payment. And most don't realize that you literally can get into a home for $1,000. And that is just wild. And then if you're open to house hacking, open to having people help pay your mortgage, literally you can be in this house that you own that's appreciating, that part of that monthly payment is going towards yourself each month in equity contribution. And that handles the two largest objections that most buyers have to get into the market. So that's like 86% of all renters want to buy a house. And I think the biggest roadblocks is they just don't know how. And if we just, use that statistic that I mentioned earlier, that 50%, whether you're an agent on the call or a client, like 50% are open to doing what I'm doing. So, what is house hacking? Essentially, I define it as just a home that you can make money off of. We talked about duplexes, right? You could buy a duplex and live in one and have the other one help offset that full mortgage. Homes with accessory dwelling units. You live in the single family home and then rent out the accessory dwelling unit, which essentially is a mother-in-law suite. I literally have a client under contract right now. A home with an accessory dwelling unit in Colorado is about like 1.2 million. So they're making a lot of money off of, or not making a lot of money. They're high income earners, yet they still upped their budget, right? Because they were looking at $800,000 homes. But if they have $3,000 a month coming from a unit in the back, they were willing to stretch their budget to get a house that had a rental property essentially in their backyard.
Danielle,
Um,
Julia is asking about when they're qualifying for these properties, short-term versus long-term rental income, and the guidelines around using that. Do you want to speak on that quick?
Absolutely. Okay, so one thing most agents, buyers, and even lenders don't know about is we can use roommate rent to qualify for, like, let's just say you and your friend are currently living in an apartment together. If that friend is going to move in and be your house hacker with you in the new one, as long as you're under a certain income limit, which I'm not going to say right now because it's different in Minnesota and Colorado, but get with Allison if you're in Minnesota, get with me if you're in Denver, or anywhere in Colorado. You can use that to help boost the qualification. That's
Um,
called
in
border. Like,
in
yeah.
Minnesota, it averages between 90 and 100K. There are new income limits coming out though, in I think a week, right? Is that
They just came out. Yep.
okay? So
Like
they
mine is now up
so
to like one. I'm not gonna say because I don't
yeah, I
actually
don't have the number
remember the
off the
new
top of
income
my
limits.
head, but it
Yeah.
just did just go up. Yeah. So like
Yep.
think of it, does it work for your average person who works in corporate America sales and makes six figures? Probably not to have two incomes on that type of loan. But
Yep.
teachers, I think of like the servers, the part-time workers, the people who have
Yep.
three jobs, the nurses who have variable income. Those are the people who kind of get hosed in these types of situations, the hairdressers, and they can't
Yep.
qualify. And they do have a roommate and they're happy to have a roommate. Heck, if someone would have come to me in my 20s and told me that me and my bestie Kelly could house hack together and use our incomes together, we would have done that versus paying 4K a month for a bad townhouse in Northeast Minneapolis. Like
Yep.
game
And
changer.
this is why I say talk to a lender the minute you start thinking about wanting to buy, not when you're actually out home shopping, because we do have to structure that in a way for it to be usable. Like, for example, we need 9 months history of the last 12 months history that they have been receiving a check from that roommate. So Allison, like, I'm just gonna say Allison and I are roommates. Allison holds the rental license in her name at the apartment complex. Instead of me being roommates and paying the apartment complex, I need to Venmo Allison instead of then mowing the apartment complex, and then it's usable rent. And then I can use that to boost qualification. If we're talking about an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, there gets complexities on if that accessory dwelling unit is a permitted building, like it followed regulation when it was built. If the appraiser doesn't know that, we can still use it. If the appraiser does know it, sometimes we can't use it. Short-term versus long-term rents, we're it doesn't matter the use type of how that primary residence is going to be uh, built. I can't use short-term or long-term rent unless it's border income on a primary residence, unless it has an accessory dwelling unit. This is where you need expert lenders. I would call myself one in Denver and Allison in Minnesota to know all these complexities of can we use it, can we not? What's the income limits? Is it permitted? Is it not permitted? If it's not permitted, we're probably good. Like
Yeah.
just to
But
be
when
able
you
to
think
advise.
of, I'm thinking of people watching this recording too. If, past clients who have kids who are just out of college or just started their first job, this is a great way to help them start building wealth. And if we talk to them now, and maybe they just moved into a new apartment this spring, we have a full year to prepare them for it, right? No different
Yep.
than, normally people don't wake up on a Saturday and decide to buy a house. They want a plan. So it's just staying ahead
Yep.
of that conversation. And then Julia, on long-term rental income, Danielle, do you want to speak to the guidelines on that? That's a little
Yeah,
bit easier.
sure. So when talk about house hacking, I'm always talking about primary residence, not investment properties. So if we're buying an investment property, guidelines are completely different than if we're buying a primary. From an investment property standpoint on short-term rental income and um, long-term rental income, most programs that have the cheapest interest rate, we're going to use something called a 1007 report. Essentially, it's an appraisal report that pulls comps around the area of how much can this particular house or unit be rented from a long-term rental standpoint. Then we'd be able to use rental income regardless of if the buyer is buying it as a short-term rental investment property or a long-term rental investment. Um, there are, and we do have them at Guild, specific programs to utilize just short-term rental income. And the only reason I would use that as a lender is if I couldn't qualify the home or the purchase based on long-term rents. And we need to boost the income. Like, say they're buying something in Frisco, Colorado, which is a resort town, and it's been short-term rented for the last 24 months, and we can prove that it's been making $5,000 a month in rental income when really the long-term tenant 1007 report would only come in at like 33,000. That's why I would use a short-term rental program, but you're going to pay for that in a higher interest rate because it's a different style of loan.
Yes, perfect. Keep going. Sorry.
No, great questions. So we kind of touched on this, but the different types of house hacks. One, a lock off. So essentially, that is what I showed in my video. It is a separate door of I live upstairs, they come downstairs. It's completely separate. Um, a by the room rental. So in this photo up here, you see the little glass, and then you see my oven.
Yes.
That was what my house looked like before I installed the doors.
Oh.
I was somebody that was like, I don't care. I'll just have strangers in my house and didn't even separate it until COVID literally happened. And technically, the guests could go down the stairs and up into my space, and we were like conversing, right? So the minute I added the doors, and why I would suggest it is obviously for safety reasons. And two, you then can, on your Airbnb listing, it is then a whole house listing, which is more profitable than a shared space listing. Airbnb gives you two opportunities. And then the other type of Airbnb style is renting out the whole house. So I am a mortgage lender that can work from anywhere. In 2021, I spent 6 months working and traveling from South America. And while I did that, I locked my stuff in a storage into a closet that just had a keypad lock. And it was like all my toiletries, made the rest of my house look like a hotel room. And then I rented out a 3-bedroom, 2-bath instead of a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and was able to generate even additional income from renting out the entire unit for 6 months. So this strategy is also amazing for people that work remotely. They can go home for Christmas for 2 weeks and rent out their house. That's the other thing that I like to mention is house hacking can change over time, right? When I first bought my house, I just put down $100,000 on a down payment. I was not making as much money as I am today. I needed the extra income. I bought in a neighborhood that was way over my budget, from how comfortable I felt out of pocket just by myself. And so I had guests every single night. I had my calendar open all the time for Airbnb guests. Then, as my lifestyle changed, I would just lock the doors and rent out the basement when I was gone. So I wasn't even upstairs and people were coming in. Then I would rent out my entire house when I would go visit my sister in Houston for a week and a half and look at my little niece and nephew. So what I love about it too is that it doesn't have to be roommates. It doesn't have to be all the time. What if that monthly payment is only $400 more expensive than what you would feel comfortable with? Well, what if you just rented out your house 2 weeks when you were in Italy anyway on vacation? That can generate like $2,500 in the 2 weeks that you're gone and offset the rest of the year of a mortgage payment. Um,
Also, another thing, have you done Pure Space at all, Danielle?
I haven't, no. Mm-mm.
So we have a couple agent friends of mine here in the Twin Cities, and they're single gals, and they rent their house on Pure Space during the day all the time. They'll call and be like, "Hey, can I use your office? I'm kicked out of my house for the day." And they have a company show up and use their house for a commercial or whatever. And similar at the beginning, you said, "Oh, that you probably think I live in a mansion." These girls live in totally normal homes. One is in South Minneapolis, probably a 600K or 700K home, like an up down situation. It's not like some giant magazine ready kitchen. It is a normal home. And if you think of, and then the other gal lives in a 300 to 400K home in St. Louis Park. But if you think of homes you see in a commercial or in a photo shoot, they're typically not $2 million homes unless that's what the photo shoot is for. They're typically a normal family in the kitchen or whatever the case is, and they'll just literally rent out the home for like $800, and they just have to be gone from 8 to 5 or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And that brings up another point is house hacking could just not be using your garage. What if you just got $200 for a storage unit and somebody wanted to store their car there and their personal stuff and they're not even in your space? A lot of homes in Colorado have detached garage, so they're not even like connected to your house. And that can help bridge that gap in monthly payment that, getting, because $200 on a mortgage payment is what, about 100,000 in purchase? No, no, no.
Well,
That's 666. About $50,000 in
well,
purchase.
or you think of how many clients say that they want to wait to purchase until rates hit 5 or 5.5%. $200 for most first-time home buyers is the delta between five and a half
Yep,
percent and rates at 7%.
exactly. So I think if you're, one of the things that I always say in my pre-approval meetings is what are you willing to sacrifice? Right? Because home ownership is like people look at me today and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Danielle, you've got three houses, you're 36, 37. Like like you were lucky because you bought a house." Well, I was lucky because I sacrificed space, right? I was lucky because I had two roommates since I was 24 and I bought my first house. I was lucky because I chose on a Saturday to move all my personal stuff into a locked closet so that I could make $2,000 for the weekend when I went camping. So I think that, or you have to sacrifice, do I want to live in downtown Denver or do I want to live a little bit farther out? Now, if I look at 10 years later and we're going to get to it, I think it's been about $500,000 since 2017 in equity appreciation and short-term rental income that has propelled my lifestyle into a direction that I no longer have to care. And I think as a first-time home buyer, you can't just go into it thinking I'm going to get the same amenities that I'm getting as at my condo and it's going to be the same monthly payment. You're either going to be paying more in a monthly payment and with worse amenities, but when you look back, I've been a homeowner since 2012 now and think I have millions of dollars in equity just because I made that first move. And so you have to be willing to look at your future self. Where do I see myself 15 years from now, 30 years from now? My monthly payment on a $700,000 home is $1,500. But it's not because I'm lucky. It's because wait a long time ago, I made that sacrifice when my monthly payment was more than my rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we find these money-making homes? Uh, One, location, location, location. Can I do what I want to do with it? That is the most important thing. If you're looking at condos, condos are tricky because condos have what's called HOAs. Most HOAs do not like short-term rentals. Now, you probably can get a roommate in a condo. Great, if that's the strategy that you want. But if you want a short-term rent, be very careful on reading those bylaws. Same thing with like in Denver, it has to be a primary residence. In um, Parker, Colorado, you can't short-term rent at all. So if you want to make money off of your home from a short-term rental standpoint and don't want roommates, you have to be careful. Then property layout. Look for separate entrances. Is there a way to divide a single family house into two? Tall ceilings if there's basements, lock off capabilities, finished basements, master suites with a walkout doors. I'm going to show us some pictures here in just a minute. And then income potential. I run something for my clients called AirDNA, which is aggregates Airbnb and VRBO data for short-term rental potential income. The other thing that I like to do is just have you look at Zillow, Craigslist. What are room rentals going for? Just do a little bit of market research, comparing. Look at other Airbnbs that you would book. Like how much per night are they? Are they booked frequently? Here's an example of the different regulations in and around the city of Denver. So Denver primary residence only. Um, all these other ones, investment properties are allowed, but with asterisks. Parker, you can't do it at all. Uh, or if there's no regulation in place. If there's no regulation in place, I'm very, very hesitant
Mm.
on wanting you to buy there because regulations are coming and you don't know what the parameters are going to be. Um, There are certain places that have a licensing cap. Like Wheat Ridge allows for investment properties and primary residence, but they allow it only for 2% of the housing stock. There's a wait list in different districts. Each district has like, so it gets very, very um like intensive of like what regulations are in each area. Arvada is like, yep, sure, you can short-term rent, but you can only short-term rent for 240 days. I'm currently in an Arvada. I'm currently in a condo. I cannot short-term rent the house that I'm currently in because my HOA regulations do not allow them. In Minnesota, it's totally fine in Minneapolis. You don't need a license if it's a primary residence. So if we're talking about house hacking, you don't need it. If you want it as a investment property, then they do require you to go through a licensing, and it was like $49. It was like easy peasy. If you don't know the short-term rental regulations, the first thing that you should do is just Google short-term rental ordinance, name, city, and state. That's literally what I did for Minneapolis, Minnesota to like pull up in like 2 seconds. Then I use ChatGPT to put the ordinance, and you want to look at the ordinance. The URL should say .gov. Do not use a real estate person that posted on a blog. Do not use like it. Regulations change all the time. You want to go directly to the source. Then I would put the whole ordinance that's really hard to read into ChatGPT and just say, "What's give me the clip notes." Um, then, if you're under contract for a house, part of your due diligence, I would email and call the municipality and just be like, "Hey, saw this online. Just curious, anything in the works changing?" And then read the ordinance and HOA docs. Also super important. So types of money-making homes. We saw my basement rental. My basement, it makes about $2,000 a month from short-term rental income. Short-term rental, I find, is more lucrative than a having a long-term tenant. I was renting out. I met a guy at a hostel in Hawaii, and he like hit me up on Instagram, like, "I'm moving to Denver. Do you have any places?" And I was like, "Oh, like I like you were fine. Like my basement's open." I gave him like 5 days, and then it was working out. I hadn't had roommates since like my 20s, and he ended up. I just like kept extending, and he ended up paying me about $1,500 a month for a long-term kind of separate space. At that point, I had to open those doors, and he had to share a kitchen with me because I don't have a kitchen in the basement. In Denver, that's really important because if you have a kitchen in the basement, it's technically not allowed per the fire code, in which case you
So the
could,
basement that you were renting short term doesn't have a kitchen in it.
it just has a wet bar. Think
Wow.
hotel
So it's
room.
like a hotel. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't have a microwave. I don't have a full kitchen. I don't have a microwave because my average night stays are 1 to 2 nights, and I like that because they come in at 4 p.m. It's like business travel or somebody driving cross country. Um, because if they come in at 4 p.m. and leave at 8 a.m., literally I don't even like I just open
Yeah.
those doors. My laundry's downstairs too. So I had to wait for guests to leave to do my laundry. But if
So
my
it's not
app
like you found this magical home that weirdly had two kitchens in it or any. I was like, how did you find this house with all these kitchens? Okay. Wow. Okay.
no, yeah, and I can when I'm done here, I'll post in the chat my link to my whole house Airbnb and then my uh just the basement unit Airbnb so you can kind of see it. Um, but it's just a single family house. So when in here, let me go through these pictures. So this is a single family house, right? This is my friend Rachel's, and she's a client of mine too. And so right here at the like carpeted area is the front door.
Okay.
This is a door jamb that goes into her living room, and where that light is coming in is the kitchen.
Yep.
This white door leads into a bedroom and a bathroom. Essentially, all she did to then make this rentable is add a door.
This is the
Boom,
layout
single.
of like thousands of homes in the Twin Cities. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. So the only negative on her side is that she cannot use her front door. She has to park in the back where her garage is. She enters in through the back. If a guest is there, she no longer has a front door. If she has friends over, we enter her yard is right here. There's a gate that goes back to this backyard, and then we walk in this door right here.
Which isn't really a big deal.
No, and then she's upstairs with her and her husband is like upstairs is where their bedroom is.
Wow. Very cool.
So this is a walkout basement. Sarah the is utilizing the basement to maximize rental income from the upstairs.
Your sound isn't working through Zoom, but it's good to see the layout.
Sorry, the
So
volume isn't working.
yeah, I think it's weird when when you're on share screen. Um,
Okay.
but it's good to see the layout. So hold on. So she's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath rental upstairs, and she's just renting out the lower level. And what's in the lower level? Just a
No,
normal
no, no.
kitchen and a
She's living
bedroom.
in the lower level.
Okay,
She
she's living
actually
in the
lives
lower
there.
level. Okay.
This is one that actually has a kitchen in the basement.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
she is full-time in the basement. She has a 3 bed, 2 bath upstairs. She has a 1 bed, 1 bath downstairs with an office and a true kitchen that she put in.
Got it.
This is in a place called Westminster, which is a suburb of Denver. This makes it completely different. It probably could still be illegal in Westminster to have two kitchens up down because it probably still doesn't meet the fire code. But Denver regulation and licensing is like super strict, and you're gonna get caught, and you might get away with it for a year, but then you won't get your license renewed. Westminster's kind of like lackadaisical. They don't even really know if people are licensed. Like it's just
Yeah.
not as strict, and so she has guests upstairs, and she is making $4,400 a month
Wow.
from just the upstairs. And the reason hers is generating so much more income than mine is because she can fit 6 people, and mine is only 2 people.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I also advise people that want to do this, like, think about how you want to live, right? If you're downstairs and have 6 people up top, like, they're partying, they're playing cards, they're loud. I like making $2,000 a month, but it's usually a single individual or a couple. The reason I don't have a microwave is because I don't want them to cook in my basement. Go out to eat, go explore Denver. Like, I don't want it. I've gotten one complaint that I didn't have a microwave, and I'm like, it's not on the listing.
Yeah.
And I would rather short-term stays. I'd rather in and out, no
Yeah.
parties, no people. I have a pull-out couch downstairs. I don't even allow 4 people.
Okay.
So in Colorado, Elias is a client that is in Lakewood. He has a long-term tenant that was paying $2,100 for an up-down, also separate kitchen. So you also have to think, like, as you're looking at homes, what is it that I want to do? Right? Do I want to have short-term like Danielle and just in and out and it doesn't need a short-term or a kitchen? Is it a roommate that we share a kitchen? Or do we have two kitchens and it's a long term?
Yeah.
Um, then Katie is somebody that was like, I'm scared of a really large monthly payment. I just want a $300,000 condo, but I'm a remote worker and I love traveling the world. I still want to create equity and wealth through real estate and I don't want to be tied down. So my HOA is a condo, but the HOA rules say that I can rent it out, but it has to be 30 days or more. So she just rents it out. She goes to, I think she's in Brazil this month, and she just goes to Brazil for a month, works and travels in Brazil. Her house is just covered. She's not making any money from it, but she's not doubling her expenses by her trip to Brazil and a mortgage. She's just offsetting her costs by renting it out. And then Sarah's is the example in Westminster where she was living downstairs up on the downstairs basement while guests live upstairs. And this is a text from Sarah. Uh, Damn, dude, what I actually ended up making in July. Like she made
Oh,
$8,600 off of her short-term rental in July. And short-term rentals do have seasons, right? So summer months in Colorado is the peak season for short-term rentals. So this is also what I tell clients. If you don't want to do it all the time, just do it June, July, and August. Make a killing and save it up, and then don't have guests the rest of the month.
yeah.
So why, like, if we're looking at long-term strategy, so some of my clients are like, okay, cool, I'm going to get into the game as a first-time home buyer, but then I love real estate. Like, why would I buy a new primary instead of buying an investment property?
Yeah.
Well, An investment property, you have to put 15% down, which hardly works because of something called loan level price adjustments and these high cost loan situations that we run into a lender. So really, it's like 25% down. Whereas if you just rinse and repeat, like I have currently moved out of my house, renting that out, then buy a new house at 5% down, you only have to put 5% down as a home, like primary residence dweller, owner versus
Yeah.
an investment property. So you can stack your portfolio much quicker as a house hacker moving every 12 to 24 months
And
versus
actually, in Minnesota, you can even use we can use our bond program more than once. You don't have to be a first time buyer.
same with us. Yep. So
Yeah.
same, we can use that too. And so your cash to close is, 18,000 versus a lot more.
And 550 Minnesota gets you a lot of house. Like you
Yeah.
can, yeah, yeah,
And that's one of the things that I like to mention too is sometimes buying a bigger house is actually a cheaper option. So if you're looking at a condo, right, and a condo is 250,000 and it's a one bedroom, one bath, you're responsible for that entire payment yourself. If you up your budget to 450,000 and you've got $1,500 of rental income, then technically your payment can be about the same as that condo, but that $550,000 price is appreciating at a 4% versus the 250, so you're building wealth quicker.
yeah,
And most likely you're staying in that house longer because you're not outgrowing it. You then have two kids and a husband. Well, you can stay in that house versus moving from your one bedroom condo into a three-bedroom house 3 years later.
yeah,
And then you're paying real estate commissions and all of that again.
yeah. No, absolutely.
So in Denver, the average rent for a two-bedroom is 2,200 a month. If we're looking at what it would be if you house act, it's like 2,400. So it can be right in line with what you're currently paying in rent. Anyway. And then what if we don't even look at rental income? What if we look at just like the cost of renting versus buying? So if we're looking at cash flow differences, let me try to find, sorry. So principal and interest rent versus owning. So you're paying $2,200 in rent versus a $4,100 monthly payment. If we don't even factor in rental income, your cash flow is negative 100,000. That's like looks like it's way better to rent versus buy because $100,000. But what's interesting and what most people miss, especially first-time home buyers or people that are renting, what they don't realize is all of the added benefits of home buying. So when I like to look at appreciation, I like to compare it to any other commodity. Let's take Starbucks coffee. In high school, I used to get a Starbucks. A Starbucks used to be like $3. I can't walk out of Starbucks for under $7. That is what's called inflation. And inflation is essentially appreciation if we look at it in a different way. And so, what housing does is you lock in your lumber costs, your plumbing costs, your all of those commodities that over time go up. If we look at the cost of bread back in 1905, right, or a house cost in 1905 versus today, it's astronomically different. So essentially, a 30-year mortgage locks in today's price, has a monthly payment that cannot change except for taxes and insurance, while that asset that you secured at 5% down, 10% down, 3% down is appreciating. And so if we're looking at appreciation gain over 5 years in the Denver market, I can't remember, $540 purchase price. That market value in 5 years most likely will be about 685,000. So by buying a home, you're $40,000 richer than if you were to continue to rent, even though the monthly payment is more expensive. And this is without even house hacking. On this particular example, on year 3, it makes more sense to buy a home versus rent a home. Now, if you're looking at this, like on year 1, it's $22,000 more expensive or to buy. But But if you offset that by $2,000 a month in rental income, essentially, like within 1 year, it makes more sense to buy versus rent.
I go back to this one real
Yep.
quick. I I always like to point this out to clients. You know, the average person in our country owns their home for 5 years. So and what this really means up top, the net gain by buying a home. So that means in 5 years, if you did nothing, you did no rental, you did nothing like that, and you went and moved out of your home, you would walk away after you pay your realtor, after you pay title fees, everything else with $40,000. And these numbers are conservative estimates. This takes forecasted appreciation at under 5% when right now in Minneapolis, it's over 6% for the last 5 years, 10 years. The 63-year average is at like 3.8%. So these are really, really like conservative numbers that you're looking at. $40,000 is a lot of money
Yeah, and if
to live
you
in your house.
and in 5 years, if you continue to rent, every dime that you pay in rent goes to your landlord and nothing goes to you. And that's why this is the difference is the appreciation gain plus the amortization gain. Essentially, you paying a part of that mortgage to yourself every month. You also get the tax benefits of home ownership, not including the tax benefits of being a house hacker. Like, oh, you have to buy a couch for that basement because you're going to rent it out. Oh, that's a tax write-off. Oh, you've got to buy a bed. Oh, you need cleaners. That's one of the things that I miss not doing it in my current place is I would hire cleaners like every week they would come in and they would do the whole house, but I would write it off on the basement because they had to clean the basement. Um, and all of those different perks too of home ownership. So
Vanessa, thanks for the comment in here. I'll message you afterwards and I can run some individual scenarios. I also want to mention, I think one of the most important things about this, and Danielle, you can speak to this. Do you feel every realtor knows about how to handle things like this?
no, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to work
Yep.
with the right realtor too for them to understand this is an option, these are the regulations, things like that.
Yep. And if you are a realtor, I think the biggest takeaway from this is, are you asking that question during your buyer's consult? Are you open to renting out a portion of your home? If I could find you a house that I could separate from an up down where you could have guests in the basement and you live upstairs, would that change your mind? Like having that strategic conversation to open the doors of, additional conversations on rentals and making that monthly payment gap feel less scary because it is scary. I'm not it's like when you go from a $2,200 monthly payment to a $4,000 monthly payment, like that's scary. And one of the things, and feel free to either don't comment on here, I guess, email Allison or myself on if you need real life examples of how much money people are making. That's one of the things that I try to provide clients and realtors of clients that are doing this, their testimonials of like their actual numbers, because it's hard to believe that you can make $2,000 off a basement. It's like, oh, Danielle said this at one webinar. And so I like to have concrete proof of like other people doing it in the area. Um, and then I think I already touched on this. Like the biggest barrier is not enough for down payment, and people still believe that they need 20% down. You do not. 3% down as a first-time home buyer. And if you're not making 200K, most likely there's some down payment assistance program that would cover the entire down payment. So you're just responsible for closing costs. And 44% of all homes today are getting seller concessions. So essentially, almost one in two homes, the seller would pay the closing costs to get you into the house. So this is my little house. Market estimate of about 700,000. We all know that's not, super accurate, but it's accurate enough for this demonstration. I bought my house in 2016 for $411,000. Today, it's about 700,000. That is the power of not timing the market, but time in the market. This is a chart
Can you
of
say
all
that
the appreciation.
again? That was pretty good. So say it again.
Yep. This is the power of time in the market, not timing the market. I think so many people are worried about when the best time is. Well, my dad thought it was a really crappy time in 2016 when I bought. There was multiple offer situations. I had to overpay for my house because I had to go $10,000 over the other buyer to get this particular home. He thought I was crazy because he grew up in Denver and he's like, "You're gonna pay $500,000 for this little shack?" Like, no way. Thank God I didn't listen to my dad because I would be $300,000, less out of pocket.
Whenever I
Um,
have clients who are younger, especially if it's a single female buying, I always tell them my story. I work, same as you, I work in this business. My parents don't even live in the state. And when they came to see the first house I was buying, they were horrified. They're like, I can't even believe that you are so dumb to buy this house. And they were so upset. I'm like, you don't even live in the state. You have no idea. And I share that story with every client who gets pre-approved. I'm like, so now when you're all excited and you call your dad and let him know you're pre-approved, he's going to say this, he's going to say this, he's going to say this. I'd love to talk with dad too. I'm trying to
yeah,
educate everyone in the world, not just you. And I talk to a lot of
absolutely.
dads.
So we combine that with the short-term rental income since 2017. That is over $500,000 in equity
That's
and
amazing,
rental
Danielle.
income.
Congratulations. You should be really proud of yourself. That's really incredible.
That's also $83,000 a year for sleeping in my house, or $7,000 a month. This is the power of buying and house hacking and is life changing. It allowed me to quit a job selling bacon to do something that I'm super passionate about, that I love doing, that I am able to help people get into homes. If you're in the Denver market and you want to meet tonight, or you're thinking about it and you've got your wheels turning, there is a host happy hour tonight. So essentially, it's all Denver Airbnb hosts, house hackers. It's at Rhino Beer Garden tonight from 5 to 7 p.m. It's $7. It includes a free beer. So it's really just like the cost of a beer. And I would love to see you, or if you have anybody that you want to invite to it, or if you can't make it tonight, in a couple slides, I'll have a screen that you can book a free 15-minute consult. And it might be something that you're looking at 2 years from now. You might be a realtor that was like, oh, this got my wheels turning. How can I implement a new buyer's consult? How can we like strategize here? So both Allison and I will have um, will you can book a meeting here. If you want to connect and just keep learning about house hacking, follow me. I'm on the left here. If you're in Minnesota and are like, oh my gosh, all these down payment assistance programs that Guild has, we need to get more buyers into homes. This is Allison's Instagram. We are here to help more buyers generate wealth from real estate because we truly believe in it and we want to help you succeed. And it might not be a right now, it might be a year from now, 2 years from now. You might just need a roadmap of what can I work on today to get me ready to do what I want to do. And I think that's one of the things that I love about working with real mortgage advisors is it's not transactional. It's really truly how can we get you to where you want to be and how can we best assist on what your goals might be.
This was awesome,
And
Danielle. I learned a lot. This is awesome.
amazing. So this is our calendar links, or I don't actually know what yours goes to, Allison. This is my calendar link. It goes to me. I know I'm really booked up the rest of the day and Friday, but I have quite a bit of availability next week to chat with any future homeowner, any realtor, to kind of discuss like how can we make house hacking something to help get you into a home.
Mine goes to an entry form, but I just really want to, again, I think the opportunity here is, I think of when my kids, which they're babies, but when they graduate high school, like we have built everything we have really on real estate. Most of the equity and the wealth my family has is sitting in rental properties. And that gives us a lot of peace of mind when the market does things like this. I'm not watching my 401k dip by 10% and up 12%. I mean, I am watching that happen too, but I have real estate that's going up and up and up. And we have rental properties that are almost completely paid off that just now cash flow every single month. I'm in a phase of life where I have a nanny and babies at home and a dog, and I can't be doing things like this. So we have long-term rentals. We've also dabbled in a vacation home that we justified because we Airbnb'd it. So we bought a place in Florida and we put it was a second home because we were going to use it X amount of days of the year. We blocked off certain weeks for ourselves and we paid for all of the monthly payment with just VRBO income. Unfortunately, it did get washed away in the hurricane 2 years ago. So we no
Oh my,
longer have that, but we had insurance, so it's all fine. But in the 1 year we had it, we made six figures just renting it out and
that's
had a
amazing.
free place to go on vacation. And for me, it was great because I've got kids. I want to go somewhere I know has a high chair, that I know has a pack and play I can use. I can leave a cheap, noise maker there for kids. And you know who was the perfect target audience to rent our house? Families who would pay top dollar to have the same amenities and convenience when they go on vacation. For any parents watching this, to have a property where you're like, I know I can go there and I'm not going to have to pack 17 suitcases to take my kid on vacation for 5 days, that hits home, right? So,
Yep.
whether it's a second home, whether it's a primary residence, whether it's a long term investment property, real estate helps people build wealth over time. And that's really, really, we just want to educate on that. So, Danielle, thank you for taking the time. Everyone who's watching is getting a recording. Everyone who signed up who wasn't able to hop on will get a recording. Please connect with us anytime online through these links, emails. You can Google both of us. Our cell phone numbers are all over the internet. We are always happy to be a resource. Thanks, guys.